Welcome to My Life and My Songs. I'm your host, Jimmy Fortune, and we've got a fantastic show for you today. I'm here with one of the greatest in the business, Mr. Terry McBride. Terry, thank you so much for coming today.
Jimmy,
man. I appreciate you.
Man, that introduction alone, I'm tickled to be here. That's very kind of you.
Well, there's not many people that I would trade mailbox money with for songwriting, but you are one of them, brother. You are one of them.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, you know, you stick around and surround yourself with enough people as you're going through this crazy career and business. Every now and then something happens and pays off, you know, and that's kind of what happened with me. I just got connected with some wonderful people along the way and influenced by some great artists in Texas where I grew up.
Right.
And the bar was set pretty high for trying to create music that maybe I wanted to do, you know. Still simple country stuff, but, you know, you get to Nashville, this town wasn't built on a lot of good songs. It was built on some great songs.
Yes,
getting to that point where I felt my songs were good enough to sort of make a difference, that was tough, you know.
Well, what was it like, you know, of course, starting, how early do you remember you decided, hey, this is what I really want to do? And I know you traveled with your dad in the band, and that had to be like unbelievable.
Well, that was a huge influence on me early on, and that's what I wanted to be, just like my dad, you know. And that hit me before I could even play. My job was like cleaning my dad's guitar, polishing. I loved that. I couldn't even play guitar. I was young, too small. But I just loved the whole vibe. My dad would come in off the road. He had this, you know, panel truck and a trailer. I'd get in that trailer, hang out, you know, that's where all the clothes were hanging in there.
Wow.
All the amps. I thought that's what music smelled like. Little did I know it was whiskey and cigarette smoke. But, you know, that was what I did when I was young. I was sort of already way into the culture of it before I even picked up an instrument. Now that happened when I was about 9.
Wow.
And then my life changed. there was no turning back. I would take my guitar to school. I would get attention from that. I would get out of class and play songs. I went, I'm already entertaining in middle school, you know, in elementary school really. But
and your dad's name was Dale McBride. Now he had a record deal.
He did.
At that time.
He was on an independent label here called Combrio that Bill Walker and Jeff ran at the time. I met those guys in high school, and my dad was having some chart success. He had about a dozen Billboard charted singles back in the day. We had our own tour bus, and you know, William Morris was booking him. We were out doing shows with, you know, Barbara Mandrell and Roy Clark and Ronnie Millsap, things like that, right out of high school. So I was just consumed with it and loving every bit of it, of course, as a young guy.
I can't imagine, you know, getting to pick with the people and sing with the people that you got to sing with, you know, like a lot of Texas artists like Leroy Parnell.
Right.
And you had Delbert McClinton. And Delbert McClinton is like, woo. I mean, you talk about kicking band. Every time I went to see him, he's got like the best band going, and you were part of that.
He was known for that in Texas. He was the godfather of that, you know, white soul music sort of thing that he was doing. He was a master at it and putting on a show. I learned so much from him. I mean, I learned something from everyone who I was ever with during, whether it's my father, Leroy. We just had a cover band. Leroy was doing those Steve Wariner songs and, you know, Gary Morris, whatever. Yeah. And we loved it. I was having a ball. He was a great player, good guy, good friend. And then later, stair-stepping my way up through Texas, getting with Delbert, I mean, I literally, Jimmy, I drove from Lubbock to Fort Worth, quit the job and the band I was with, thinking I'm going to get this job. I had no idea. Had to go audition.
Wow.
I auditioned in Delbert's living room, and then the next day we moved to a studio. Then 2 days later, I'm in Miami opening for John Fogerty with Delbert McClinton. I'm in the band. And it was, I just hit the ground running, really, and learned so much from him because he could pace a set, and it was so dynamically exciting, you know. He had horns in the band. That was different for me. The horns bring such a different dimension to arrangements.
I love horns.
It just changes everything on the stage and the way you do your shows. But Delbert was he was a master at that sort of thing. He would rock that crowd. Not a night would go by that it wasn't just he was sweating, the crowd was sweating. You know, it was just wonderful.
We'll be right back with more My Life, My Songs right here after this. Welcome back to My Life, My Songs. When did you realize that you could write songs and you started doing that?
I was always, you know, actively working all the way through high school. I got in a good band, older guys. I was a freshman. They were like seniors and a freshman in college, that kind of older guys, you know. But they had a great band. So I was always around music, working music. And then I grew up, like I said, in Texas, outside of Austin. One of my heroes was Jerry Jeff Walker. And Jerry Jeff had these amazing songs by this guy named Guy Clark. I kept seeing this Guy Clark name on these albums.
Oh my God.
The songs that I loved were written by this guy named Guy Clark. And I was just obsessed with it and loved it. And there was a whole list of artists from Rusty Weir to Doug Somm. These people were just pouring out of Austin. That outlaw scene was on fire, but the songs were wonderful. So that's sort of what I cut my teeth on, those sort of songs, as well as George Jones and Merle Haggard, everything country we were playing that you could two-step to in Texas. So I started trying to write songs like that, you know, which was quite a task, but those were the heroes and the people I looked up to. Some of those songs were simple, but they were so well crafted, you know. Melodies that were great, and so that's the journey I started off on young in high school. And in the beginning, the songs sucked. They were not good. They were sappy and whatever. You know, you learn as you go. And then I got a little better at it. Started making trips up here and getting rejected and going. That's a long drive back to Texas.
Rejection just makes you stronger.
Well, it does.
Don't quit.
It's a long drive home from here to Texas.
Plus you got that James Dean vibe going for you. So I don't know. Every time I've ever seen you, I think about James Dean.
Hey,
I'm a big James Dean fan.
Listen,
anyway.
I'll take that. That's better than a lot of things I've been called for sure. So, but yeah, it just started that way with me really.
Okay.
And then the crazy thing about it is in this business, then I finally. My songs got better. I got introduced to a couple songwriters in Austin, this husband-wife team, Bill Carter and Ruth Ellsworth. Bill was putting a band together to go out and tour with Stevie Ray Vaughan. I just left Delbert because I really wanted to focus on my writing. I loved Delbert so much. I loved the band. It was a hard thing to do. I had nothing to go to. I wasn't leaving it to go to anything other than trying to focus, getting my life a little more together, and cleaning my act up was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And then once I did that, I met Bill and Ruth. They took me in. I got in his band. We toured with Stevie Ray Vaughan all across the country, back to Austin.
I can imagine.
And then when we got off that tour, we started writing songs together. And really, they were writing songs like Crossfire that Stevie Ray had a massive success with, other songs. And it elevated my writing all of a sudden. I was with some professional songwriters. It was like a team all of a sudden. It made me a better player, you know. Made me a better writer for sure.
Well, in 1989, you wound up, you know, some of your songs getting heard by one of the best in the business, Tony Brown.
Of all the people.
And man, when he gets a hold of you,
oh man, it changed my life.
It puts jet engines on your wings, doesn't it?
Completely. He single-handedly changed my life. He really did. I caught him on the right day. For whatever reason, my songs clicked with him. He was looking for something, and they fit. And I remember he told Bill and Ruth, we came up here together. And we started getting a little buzz. Jody Williams at BMI, we said, you know, we're coming to Nashville, we want a George Strait cut. We're from Texas, you know.
There you go.
And they said, okay. And then Jody said, well, I'll tell you, whoever's singing these songs needs a record deal. We went, that sounds good. And he set up appointments with everybody, including Tony Brown.
Yeah.
And then Tony said, man, I like these songs. I want to come to Texas. I want to hang out. And if you're the real deal, I'm going to sign you to a record deal. I went, oh man, I hope I'm the real deal, whatever that is, you know. And he did. He came to Austin, we hung out, we hit it off, and he signed me. Then he invited me to come see George Strait for New Year's Eve, my wife and I, and he said, took me in the dressing room, he goes, here's the deal, Terry. I love your songs, I like you, but we need a band at MCA. We've had Desert Rose Band, they're leaving. You're a band guy, you know, we would focus you, we put you write the songs. I went, well, it beats starving in Austin, you know, so. And Tony was my hero. He had just done the Steve Earle record, the first I Love It record. He was doing Steve Wariner, everything that I liked, he sort of had a hand in it, you know. So for me, there couldn't have been a better fit or person, and a guy that's continued to be a friend of mine all these years later. So yeah,
so that was the beginning of McBride and the Ride.
That was it. He was instrumental in putting that whole thing together. Okay. I didn't know Billy or Ray, Billy Thomas or Ray Herndon. He did. He's like, man, you're going to need some good guys in this band, and I know some guys, you know. So he brought some people in, and it happened to be them, and we hit it off. You know, we started practicing, and then we had this harmony thing that we didn't even realize was going to be sort of our calling card, you know. Ray is a baritone, Billy's a high tenor person, and a great singer, and our blend was kind of like a family thing. It just happened, man. And
we'll be right back with more My Life, My Songs after this. Welcome back to My Life, My Songs with your host, Jimmy Fortune. What was your first song cut by another artist that you tell me?
Well, it was fantastic. I mean, getting a song cut by somebody. My very first song that I ever had another artist sing of mine actually was on the old television show called Nashville Now.
Okay.
And Tony Brown was working with William Lee Golden at the time. He had left the Oaks, was going to do a solo
I remember
thing.
That. Yeah, of course.
So he heard a song of mine called Every Step of the Way. And so Tony called me and said, man, William Lee's going to be on Nashville Now tonight. He's going to sing your song. We had all my friends. I'm living in Austin, Texas. It might as well have been Elvis. I didn't care. Somebody's going to sing one of my songs.
That's so cool.
So we all got friends together. We had pizza. We gathered around the television. Oh, my God. And there he came out. Yeah. Where a lot of times it doesn't happen. You know, somebody will tell you, they're going to cut your song, and then it just doesn't, you know. There he was. He came out. He sang my song. It was like, I couldn't believe it. The feeling was like euphoric. No drug, no anything I'd ever done or anything came close to the feeling of that. Like all of a sudden, my music was being recognized by someone enough to where they wanted to sing it, you know. Yeah. And then from there, my next major cut was John Anderson, which I'm a huge John Anderson fan.
I'm a big John Anderson fan too. I love him.
Oh, I gurmed him so bad one time. We opened a show in Lubbock, Texas. I was living out there, and I didn't know him. I'd never met him, but I hung out by his bus until I got to meet him. And Swingin' was #1 on the charts. He was like on fire. He was a rock star. And he was so kind to me.
He was that way to me too when I first came on the scene.
So generous. I couldn't believe it. I just became a bigger fan immediately. Yeah. He cut a song of mine for a movie called 8 Seconds. It was the Lane Frost story. Right. And the song was featured in the movie, and then McBride and the Ride had a song in that movie. It was so great. We went down and I tell people, we're in the movie. The song, the movie's called 8 Seconds. We're in it for about 6 seconds.
Okay, well, hey, that's something, by golly.
But it was wonderful. We filmed with Luke Perry all day, but 14-hour shoot. And they really edited down to, we just are playing ourselves. I think Brooks and Dunn, Vince Gill were in the movie as well. It was a wonderful thing to be involved in. But that was my first big cut by someone. And then my second cut was George Strait. That was, you know, all the years later.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine. Yeah. You know, you've had, of course, Brooks and Dunn. I mean, 25 or how many?
And I don't know exactly. Somewhere around 25 to 30 cuts with those guys.
And then, like, how many of them were like #1 songs?
A few of those. I had a dozen singles.
A dozen, only a dozen?
Yeah,
okay. And then you had, you know, Garth Brooks, like I said, George Strait, Reba McEntire.
Reba.
I can't imagine that.
Oh, I can't either.
Like I said, I'd love to go to your mailbox.
Well, that allowed me. I tell people that allowed me to keep my house for sure. Those types of songs, and then occasionally there's one like duets where Reba and Brooks and Dunn. That not only allowed me to keep my house, I tell people I was able to take the wheels off of it after that.
So that would be like the most impactful song? Like
those, I've had 2 duets with Reba and Brooks and Dunn, which is amazing to even say that. It still is, it's hard to believe, really.
Of course, you wrote a song called Play Something Country.
Yeah.
You know, with Ronnie Dunn.
With Ronnie, we wrote that on the bus, like most everything we wrote, going down the road. Yep.
So how long did you get to hang out with him on the road?
13 years. Yeah, when I was, the band that I was in, McBride and the Ride, was winding down. I wrote a song that I thought was going to maybe, you know, be a solo project for me, segueing out of my band into Terry McBride, you know. It didn't happen. My label, they just didn't hear the song for whatever reason. It just didn't happen. And then fortunately for me, Brooks and Dunn heard it, and it was a song called I Am That Man. And I went over to the label one day. Ronnie and Kix wanted to say hello to me, and I knew him, but not well. Kix had written a big hit for McBride and the Ride, Sacred Ground. And we were nominated for New Group of the Year, 92, that era. And so I had run into them, and we had open shows for them, so I did know them a little bit, but not well. And they invited me over, and Ronnie said, "Man, Terry, I love this song. It's going to be a hit for us, you know. And why don't you come by the house? Let's hang out," he said. I went, "Okay, let me check my calendar."
You're in. I mean, that tells you something.
So we hung out. We hit it off like old high school buddies. He goes, "Man, I'm getting a bus. I'm getting off the band bus, and I'm heading to California. Come go with me for 15 days. And we wrote 10 songs in that 15-day run. And He's Got You was one of those. I think the song Beer 30, that was a single. Maybe a couple others on that run. But anyway, it established a friendship that went on to allow me to be out there for 13 years. That's what I did when the bus was rolling. I was on it. And then I even ended up playing bass with them the last couple years of the run. They let their bass player go. And I remember Ronnie calling me. He's like, "Man, Terry, you're out here all the time anyway. You're eating our catering every night. Why don't we put you to work?" You know? So he did. And my first night in the band, we opened for the Rolling Stones.
Oh my God!
Omaha, Nebraska. That was my first night.
You're killing me. There are lots more great stories up ahead on My Life, My Songs. Thanks for coming on back to My Life, My Songs. Y'all are touring again. McBride and the Ride touring again. Now, how's that going for you?
Well, we just did our first dates in 20 years. The first time we got together and practiced and rehearsed, and we had a ball. I mean, fortunately for us, we always remained friends. It was a business thing that got in the way of us. All the attention was focused on me. It was McBride and the Ride, you know. And those guys got left out of everything. You know? Right. And it would hurt me at times because they were my pals. You know, we were a team. And it eventually just split us up. The success almost ended and eventually did end the band. But we remain friends. We continue to talk. We've seen each other. Billy is just the best. Billy Thomas plays with the Time Jumpers. Vince Gill, he always had. He was singing on those records back with McBride and the Ride. Little Liza Jane, things like that. Ray had been with La Lovett since '83, still is. And then we figured we were starting to get some interest with McBride and the Ride. Ray really wanted to do it, and so it wasn't like I had to talk anybody into it. They wanted to do it. We got together, along with our old steel player, Gary Morris, who plays with Brooks and Dunn, and was a fantastic player, and was with us for 4 years back in the '90s. We had the whole original cast. We hit the road down through Texas a couple weeks ago, and it was just fantastic. It just left us wanting to do more, really.
Well, isn't it amazing that sometimes the business can get in the way of things and and actually just tries to take away the love for what you do, you know. And then, like you say, you get back together after all these years, you get all that out of the way.
It was complete. So everybody's so much, it's so much more relaxed. We enjoyed every minute of it. I mean, from the rehearsing, I mean, we had to talk and laugh, and then eventually played a little bit of music. You know, it was so much fun to be back with them and traveling, all of it. It was just a blast. We enjoyed each other's company, and so we'll be doing more of those definitely as things continue to open up and more opportunities come forward. The '90s thing is so popular, and
I think so.
We're kind of grandfathered in. Thank goodness we get to do some of that. And then when I'm not doing that, I do my solo show and tour and travel, and that's a big part of what I'm doing too. So it allows me to still be creative and, you know, still be in the business somewhat and in control of what I'm doing. So I like it.
It's kind of like that after the Statler Brothers retired, and I went on my own. It was a hard thing because you're stepping from this larger than life group, and it's kind of, people don't realize it's just kind of a tough place to be for a while. But I decided that, you know, if I couldn't have fun with it, I didn't want to do it. And I knew within the first year whether I was going to really like it or not, you know. And I think loving people like you do, I just feel that from you. You love people. You
likewise,
and I think that's the magic of it all. And love music. You have a passion.
Well, and you still sing so good, Jimmy. It's like if you were out there struggling, it might not be as much fun, but you're fortunate where you still sing and play well. And
well, maybe you'll write with me one day.
Come on, let's do it.
I can go back and get some of that mailbox money like you got.
I'm always open to that, man.
What's next for Terry McBride?
Well, we're booking dates. That's the next thing for me. I'm heading to Texas. I have 4 dates coming up next week, and it's going to be great. It's kind of a home base for me, even though I live here in Nashville. I've split half of my life has been in Texas and Tennessee. I do travel all across the country. We're going to Oklahoma, Nebraska, and South Dakota. We do have dates coming up all over the country, and that's wonderful. But I found the core. I just recently had a little #1 single on the Texas Red Dirt chart down there, and that's a cool thing. Yeah, it was really cool. It opened me up to a little different audience, and it's allowed a few more people to be curious about what I'm doing, and so I love that. And my music just seems to fit. I can kind of be who I am and what I like to do instead of changing it to be something I'm not. Those days are just, you know. But honestly, I've always been able, thanks to Tony Brown, he said, man, you write the songs. He didn't say, you know, we're going to bring in a bunch of songs, here's what you're going to sing. He gave me an opportunity unlike no one else. He's like, take the ball and run with it. Well, I'm counting on you to write these songs. So I was inspired by that and encouraged. Tony was the guy, you know. It was amazing.
That's what made him so great, I think. Like a lot of producers, you know, they'll want to take control of the artist and then change them from what they are. But producers that let you do that are very rare sometimes. That, you know, but what it sure has paid off for you and for him. I think.
He's a master at, even if he's putting a dinner party together, he wants the right pieces to be in place. That's the way he is. He wants it to be a good experience. Same way in the studio. Has to be the right players, has to be the right room. It all has to be right to feel good to him. And then he was a song guy, you know. I'd bring these songs, and he didn't love every song, but those that he did went on the record. He would hear it one time. I just play it acoustically. He's like, "We're cutting that. That's done. What else have you got?" You know, he wouldn't waste my time or his. He was a serious person, but it made me a better musician, definitely a better songwriter. Wanting to please a guy like that, I had an opportunity. And I took advantage of it every way I could, for sure.
Terry, I tell you what, I want to thank you so much for coming and being. This is going to do so much for a lot of the young people who are watching this show, who see somebody like you and realizes what you've been through to get you to where you are. It just didn't happen overnight. It's hard work, dedication. I want you to know we appreciate you and love you so much, brother.
Listen, love you, and thank you so much for having me be a part of this. I enjoyed every bit of it. Thank you.
Thank you for being on My Life and My Songs. God bless y'all. We'll see you next time.